Johns is the Saskatchewan Premier, Brad Wall. Good to see you, Premier.
Hi, how are you?
You are there as the premiers are trying to hash out this national energy strategy. The project was started by the former Premier of Alberta, Alison Redford, and the goal was to try and get more pipelines built. Do you feel like this strategy has now been hijacked by provinces who are trying to push for action on climate change?
No, I think it's been strengthened by that. I really do. We need as a country to have a balanced approach with respect to energy if we want the world to be supportive of what we have to offer in terms of energy products, oil and gas. They should also know that we take the issue of the environment very seriously. And I mean, when I've been in Washington lobbying for Keystone, that's been the point that I've made, which is to say, you know, in Canada we have a energy superpower. The third largest reserves on the planet are here, so that's an oil superpower. But one that, more so than the other two above us, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, one that prizes and prioritizes sustainable energy development and environmental issues. And so I don't think it hurts it at all, as long as in that energy document we're not afraid to say oil and gas, and that we have it, and that it's a good thing. And better it be here in Canada, where we can do better always, but where we have a reasonable track record of being more sustainable.
So clearly you're comfortable saying that, but would appear that the Alberta Premier, Rachel Notley, is not as comfortable saying that. Do you feel like she's beholden to Central Canada in some way, that she's giving them a de facto veto?
I can't speak to what she's thinking. That's her job to represent Alberta's interest. I also have a role and a responsibility to represent the natural resource sector. We're the second largest producer of conventional oil, and we have the potential for one day oil sands development in our province, though none currently in existence. I would just say this. I saw the coverage of the meeting that happened between Quebec and Alberta, and it wasn't just me that had the concern that we were sort of introducing the idea of some sort of quid pro quo, some sort of notion that if you changed your domestic policies in a province, then another province that might be home to a transmission line of your energy might be more receptive to being in favor of it. And I just don't think that's on. I think that would be a marked departure from how this country has run itself, how the Federation has operated, and it's not particularly welcome in my book.
But it does sound like you're working at counter purposes with Alberta. I mean, you've got one idea of how this should be done, and the Premier of Alberta has another. And she had some pretty strong language about some of the things that you've said over the past 24 hours. Let me play a clip of Rachel Notley to you and get you to react.
My view is that in the province of Alberta, we've been an energy leader for decades. And part of the way we've done that is by taking a collaborative, mature, long-term view of our relationships with our colleagues across the country. And we've worked to build partnerships because we know ultimately that's the way to build consensus and support for what we're trying to get done. And so I'm going to continue that strategy. I think it's one that works well. You know, other premiers can do a little bit of showboating if that's what they want to do.
Are you showboating? Are you trying to do things by picking fights and not by reaching consensus?
You know, if standing up for the industry that's so important to our province is showboating in any way, show me the bridge. I'd make one other point. Notwithstanding her reference to how Western Canada has tried to engage with other provinces and other jurisdictions in terms of oil transmission or pipelines, how many have we got built or even approved or even potentially approved? The bottom line is, well, the answer to that, by the way, in terms of the contemporary discussion of it, is zero, whether it's going west or going east. We need to as a country, and in Western Canada, I think we need to be clear, oil and gas is a good thing. Oil and gas has created unprecedented economic opportunity and prosperity for the whole country, directly and indirectly, with people coming to work in the West and other manufacturing jobs being created in places like Ontario and Quebec. And so I think we need to have a fairly honest discussion. This is not a new pipeline. This pipeline basically exists today, except for a third of it, and it will transition from gas to oil. It will replace foreign oil. This is the energy use pipeline. It would replace our need for foreign oil, and it gives us a chance to add value in our country. And so let's speak plainly about it. I know the partners at Confederation speak plainly back when we have these discussions. discussions, and they can be very productive and fruitful, and will be in the end, I believe.
Well, the Premier of Quebec does seem to be at least contemplating now Energy East pipeline, perhaps in a way that he wasn't before. Do you think this is a case of you catch more flies with honey than vinegar? Would that not be a better approach here? Because you've decided to come out aggressively and try and push it, but are you sure that strategy is going to work?
Well, we haven't caught any flies, by the way, on these projects so far, and I think it's a combination. It's a combination of things. I do think the rest of the country and the rest of the world needs to understand that in Western Canada we take the environmental issues around energy development very seriously, and in fact we've made record public investments and we have regulations, and we've all done our own things. The first jurisdiction actually to price carbon was Alberta. And so you need to make that case, but what you don't need to do, frankly, is say, look, if some other province would like us to change something else about our provincial policy, maybe increase our price per carbon or have one in the first place or join cap and trade, and that the quid pro quo for that is approval of a pipeline that's really simply a transition from gas to oil, one that makes eminent good sense because it replaces our need for foreign oil. I don't think we have to go that far. And I think we can be direct and speak to Canadians about the benefits of this industry and the importance that we start to act like the energy power we are in terms of getting oil to move across our country to tidewater on either side of the country.
Yeah, but you have to make that argument because you're stuck in the middle of the country, and that's a hard, it's a tough argument to make. You've got to get them on your side. And yesterday you said to the premiers, we'll just start sending the cash through the pipelines and those equalization payments. I'm just not sure how productive a conversation that is, given that your province only became a have province recently in 2008, 2009. So why do you feel the need to fight back in that way?
Well, it makes a point, doesn't it? All of these programs that we prize in this country, all the social programs that we have, the transfer payments we have, the equalization payments that we have, for which Quebec is the biggest benefactor, these are all supported by a strong economy. These are all endangered if we do not have a strong economy to support them. And I think we need some plain talking. I don't agree that there's only a place for kind of apologizing for the industry and admitting we haven't done well enough. And frankly, I don't agree with that. Again, relative to other energy-producing countries around the world. Energy-producing countries, by the way, that we're happy to do business with because we are buying foreign oil today. And Energy East would help deal with that. I think it's a combination approach, but I think we need to start speaking plainly to the rest of the country, whether they're a have or have not. We are grateful to be a recipient. Who knows? It might happen one day again. We're going to work hard to make sure that it doesn't happen again, but we might be. We're grateful to have been a recipient, and now there's an equalization program in place for others that are, and it is funded on the tax base, supported by a strong economy, hopefully, and that's what the energy sector can contribute to.
But there is an argument for the premiers, other premiers, to make to you about greenhouse gas emissions. Your emissions are up 72% since 1990. You could say that Saskatchewan could do more to deal with greenhouse gas emissions, and that could be a convincing argument to some of the premiers you're trying to convince. We will do a little bit more to deal with climate change, and in return, we'd sure like it if you put that pipeline through.
Well, what I said today was exactly what our province has done, which is make the largest single public sector investment in this particular issue in the country, in North America. A $1.4 billion project to clean up coal, to make it 4 times cleaner than natural gas. We also want to have a realistic discussion in Saskatchewan. If this country is responsible for 3% or less of the world's emissions, and we know that 40% of the power is generated by coal, and we know that that's going to increase over the next number of years in places like China and India, then a contribution of a province can be more than simply a target that it may or may not reach internally. It should be, and it can be as a country, a commitment to invest in technology that actually deals with this issue substantively around the world. And so that's what I share with premiers. We know where our emissions at because of the growing economy that we've had, and that's why we've seen fit to make this largest public sector investment that you'd find anywhere in the country on the issue of CO2.
Let me end with this. I know that there are a number of oil companies, Crescent Point Energy, for instance, one of the country's largest, that says it's moving investment money out of Alberta and plowing it into your province. They are feeling uneasy about business in Alberta, corporate tax rates doubling, the carbon tax, a royalty review. Do you plan to court companies away from Alberta amidst all of this uncertainty to try and get them to buy into the way your province does business?
We were doing it prior to an election or any policy changes there, just as Alberta has done for generations in our province when companies and others would come in to recruit people. I mean, my roommate at university is still in Calgary, my brother's in Lethbridge, and so that's happened in terms of recruitment. I would say this, in fact, in our budget we introduced long before the Alberta election, we had some specific tax structures in place for companies that would expand their corporate footprint in the province or the amount of value-added jobs related to exports. And so we're going to continue to recruit not just in Alberta but anywhere else for new investment and new jobs. We're going to point to a low competitive tax rate, competitive regulatory regime, and we'll do that. Yes, we'll do that in Calgary, but we'll also do it in Winnipeg. It's one of the advantages of a federation. It's competitive, and I think it causes all governments to try to be equally competitive in terms of providing good quality services, but also at the lowest possible cost.
Yeah, you sure prove it's competitive. Thanks, thanks, Premier. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time as always.
Have a good day.
Hey, speaking of